Sandhan, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Welcome to this integrated class of Sandhan. Young friends, I am going to speak on a very interesting personality of gone by days. We consider him to be a classical master. You can call also him to be a great educationist, an academician, a lawyer and an orator. So this way, the personality of Quintilian, about him I am going to speak now, is a many-faceted personality. Friends, unlike other great masters of the past like Aristotle and Plato or maybe Horace and Virgil, Quintilian has got some special thing about him, and it is that he belonged to two different nations in those days. Today, we know Spain is a separate independent country. Quintilian belonged to Spain and then he moved to Rome. So he was a Roman by his practice, but he was a Spaniard by his birth. That makes him very interesting. So he was familiar with two different countries, two different cultures. But by training precisely, he was a Roman. So when we think of Quintilian, the first thing that occurs to our mind is that we always consider him to be a Roman master. Quintilian was deeply influenced by past masters, including Aristotle and Plato, who were Greeks, and he was also influenced by his forerunners in the field of literature and critical theories like Virgil and Horace. He was also deeply influenced by Cicero, who was also a well-known orator. But friends, before I could go ahead and we may talk more about him, I would like to give some biographical details of his life. You can see in the slide, it shows regarding Quintilian's some of the details. So he was born in 35 after death, that is after the death of Christ, and C stands for we are not certain. So he was born in the year 35. The death occurred in 100. Some people say that he might have died in the year of 95. But that is not our concern. What is important for us is that Quintilian occupied a major place when it came to Renaissance and medieval age. So people turned to him for the art of oratory. So that is why he was well known among the medieval writers and during the Renaissance. Next slide, friends. It gives some detail again regarding his life. The point to remember here is that he was a great master, but it was by training which he took in Rome, which made him a prominent writer, and the credit largely goes to his mentor. I have also mentioned the name of his mentor. You can find it in your slide. His name was Domitius Affair. It was a practice in Rome in those days, maybe 2000 years back, that ambitious youth were required to follow a particular model. They had to go to a master, they had to be trained under him, and they were supposed to be with that master for years together. So the mentor was there and he played a vital role. It was not obligatory for all, but those who wanted to shine out in a particular field, they were supposed to be the follower of one particular prominent personality. So Domitius Affair was a leading orator of his time, and father of Quintilian sent him to Rome especially for the training of oratory. So this is very important to know that he was by training an orator. His initial training made him what he is remembered for today. That is the important aspect. So Affair, who taught him the art of oratory. He was also not only an orator, he was a successful lawyer. What Quintilian did, I think you can see in the next slide, that he carefully observed him speak and plead the cases in the law courts. It was Affair who inspired him to study Cicero. All the names which I have mentioned earlier, including Virgil, Aristotle, Plato, Cicero and Horace, all these their works influenced Quintilian a great deal. So in his major writing, which is available to us, we find plenty of references to these great masters. I would like, friends, you take down the name of the mentor who trained Quintilian during his early days in Rome. Next slide, friends. Again, I am talking about the major work for which he is remembered today. The title, I think we must take care while pronouncing and writing it in the paper. It is called Institutio Oratoria. This is the Roman word. So I have also given its English version. It is called the Institution of Oratory, or you can also call him Education of an Orator. So two versions of the translation of this title of Quintilian's masterpiece is there. So when I call this work, I will use oratorio only. So friends, remember, when I speak or we speak the title oratorio, it automatically means the work of Quintilian, that is Institutio Oratoria. It was written around year 95. Some critics say that he died soon afterwards of that publication of the book. Some say he died in the year 100. But precisely that is not our problem today. So what we can remember is the work for which he is best known, the work with which we are concerned today. It is, I repeat the title's name, that is Institutio Oratoria. I would like you to take it down in your notebooks also for easy reference. Now, there is one also title available. I have mentioned in the last line of the slide, the word "the" is the article in Roman language. So very often this title is also available, just as there are multiple spellings of Quintilian. So title is also there, in which you find the article prefix to the title. But still what we can write is only Institutio Oratorio or simply Oratorio. Friends, let me move ahead, because we are concerned not with the personality but what he said, what he gave to the society. That is our prime concern. So Oratorio is a very voluminous book in 12 books rather. It is a voluminous and bulky work. It is a kind of the generalization of his views in the field, and it is a work which does not deal only the theory and practice of rhetoric, but also it talks about the fundamentals of education and morality. These are the true prominent issues which he discusses later on. So friends, when we talk about oratorio, it is not simply a work on oratory or art of oratory. It also tells about the system of education. In fact, the first two chapters are solely dedicated to his concept of education. What he feels is that, what he claims as such is that the education plays vital role in the life of orator. So the initial training which he receives from the school plays vital role. So he must be trained properly at the ground root level when he begins his education. So foundation with the sound education is the prerequisite to become a successful orator. That is the prime concern. Then he moves to advise the orator. he talks about the style, and then he advises. We talk about the facial gestures or body language today, and we feel that these are the recent phenomena, but the fact is that we find the references to this type of notions, that is body language or facial expressions, gestures, all these are already and vividly depicted in Oratorio, which is written by Quintilian. So the point to remember is that instead of treating the work Oratorio to be a work on art of oratory, in a wider perspective, the book is all about the fundamentals of education, the role of morality, and also the art and style of oratory. So, friends, we cannot confine ourselves by telling or by labeling the work as only a work on oratory. Next slide, friends, shows how he proceeds. So you can take it down if you wish, if you have got note and pen, what it deals with, what the work actually deals with. So I have written in the bold letters, it talks about the nature, value, origin and functions of rhetoric. I would like to tell you, friends, that he uses the word rhetoric and oratory alternatively. So very often he uses the word oratory, many places he uses the word rhetoric. So rhetoric and oratory, they are used in the same way with the same meaning. So friends, very often he uses the word rhetoric and very often he is using the word oratory. So both means same to him. He talks about nature, value, origin and functions of oratory. Similarly, he also talks about the types of oratory. But as I have said earlier, that he was concerned with the art of oratory and he had also gone through the practice under a lawyer. So he is more concerned with the forensic oratory. Let us remember this term, friends. He is more concerned with forensic oratory, and as I have mentioned in my slide, he himself was a practicing lawyer. He was also a successful professor. His preference to the forensic oratory is quite obvious. By forensic oratory, he means the legal language, legal oratory. It was full of legal terminology. He prefers that language because he himself by practice was a lawyer and he was also a professor of oratory. So instead of moving here and there, he concentrates himself more on forensic oratory, which is pertaining to the legal side. So the way the lawyer pleads in the court of law, it is vividly mentioned as preferential treatment in his work called Institutio Oratoria. So friends, let us remember, his prime concern is not general oratory, but his prime concern in this work is forensic oratory. He talks about nature, value, origin and functions of rhetoric, and also he talks about different types of oratory. Friends, I will move to the next slide, which also talks about how education plays vital role. The last line in the slide talks about the role of a teacher. I told you he himself chose a prominent personality of his day to be his mentor. Here he also repeats the same experience for others. He says the boy, when he goes to the school in the initial stage, he must be taught by the most accomplished teacher. So teacher is as such never ordinary personality. He is not supposed to be one. Quintilian insists that the boy or any student must be taught by the most accomplished teacher. The teacher must be aware what he is going to do, what his functions are, and how he is going to teach the student. Interestingly, he himself was a student in Rome and he had got very good teachers, and later on a master like Affair who trained him in the field of oratory as well as in the field of law. So he had got this dual advantage, and that is why he insists that the boy or a student or those who are ambitious to shine out in the field, they must have a mentor who is bound to be accomplished in every respect. So friends, the role of education as well as the role of the teacher is prominently mentioned and discussed by Quintilian. He says that education plays vital role. Though initially we may feel an orator is an adult person, and the student who goes to the school, primary school maybe, he is too young to become a public orator. Quintilian says the starting point is his education in the school. If he has got good schooling, if the student is taught by an accomplished teacher, then he has every chance to shine out in future. But if he is weak in his education, if his teacher is below average, then there are always some chances that student may not shine out in future. This is exactly what the ethics on education talks about. So teacher must be careful, he must be knowledgeable, he must be accomplished in the sense of what is he teaching. He must be familiar with the recent systems and modern techniques. This is exactly what Quintilian is expecting from the mentor. Luckily for him, he had got one when he was in school in Rome, and then later on he was in the field. So Mayfair played vital role. He was so deeply influenced that in the initial chapter he talks about the mentor who should be accomplished in every respect. So friends, let us not forget that before talking about the style, prose style, art of oratory, he lays the foundation of the art, and he goes to education. He goes to the teacher. So first two books out of 12 books, he talks about the role of teacher and role of education when the student is eager to shine out in the art of oratory. Friends, remember, the role of education is chiefly, he is more concerned with that. He says that it plays vital role. So one cannot ignore this aspect. The two chapters discusses these two things, the foundation, that is education, and the mentor. Friends, I move to the next slide. I repeat again, you can read it in the slide, that the first two chapters are dedicated to principles of education. But again, one interesting side of these two chapters are that there is a deep insight of human nature. And Quintilian studies human psychology. Though the term psychology was not coined in those days, it is a recent phenomenon comparatively. But the role of education and the molding of the character, molding of the boy, is done through this education when the master is there as his mentor. He also defines rhetoric as the art, and he classifies these arts into three. Friends, now after first two chapters, he goes on defining the art of oratory, but before that he talks about the division of art. And friends, take it down, he talks about three types of arts. One is theoretical, the other is practical, and the third is productive. Now it is easy for all of us friends, if I ask, art of oratory belongs to which category? And I am sure most of us would say only one answer, that is, it is practical. So art of oratory is a kind of a matter of practice. If one learned fellow is there, he would not utter a single word. If a leading economist is there, he utters no word in the state of economy of the country, then it is no use. He will have to practice what he has. He will have to share his opinions, and that is practical side of art. That is why Quintilian talks about the art of rhetoric, and he insists that it is the practical art. Before he moves ahead, he also claims that art of rhetoric is a matter of practice and it partakes all the three divisions, means it is superior to number one theoretical and as well as productive art. So this is a prime concern for him, that art of rhetoric is above all other arts, all other divisions of art, and despite it being superior to all these three, he thinks and he insists that art of rhetoric is nothing but the practical art. So friends, remember for maybe a kind of short question, that according to Quintilian, the art of rhetoric is the practical art. I have written this in the slide also, and again I may move. He divides rhetoric into three categories. Remember friends, I may repeat, you can also read it from the slide on your TV screen. Quintilian divides rhetoric into three major categories. They are called art, artist and the work. These three categories are there. I think you may better remember it for comprehensive questions. Then he explores the rhetoric's nature and virtue and then compares this art with philosophy. See, it is not mere saying something on art of oratory. He claims that it is far better than all other forms of arts. Not only that, it is as good as philosophy. So art of oratory is not only a matter of practice, it has got philosophical aspect also. So he compares it and he also labels it to be a kind of philosophy also. I may repeat, if a person in our society is highly knowledgeable, but he cannot share his knowledge for the benefit of the society, then it is of no use. He has got all philosophy of everything, but if he cannot share with for the interest in the interest of the society, it is meaningless. Quintilian claims in the initial chapters that it is superior art and it is the art of practice. So, what you have, it should be used for the benefit of the society. That is where Quintilian insists that it is a matter of practice and it is also highly philosophical art. Next slide friends. As I told you friends earlier, that he was deeply influenced by great masters who were there before him, like Aristotle and Plato, and also Horace and Virgil, and several others. Now, he talks about the art of oratory after discussing the role of education and the mentor, books number 3 to 11. Remember, please, I may repeat, right from book number 3 to the book number 11. As I told you, there are in all 12 books. First two books have been dedicated on his philosophy of education, role of education and role of the teacher. Now next 8 books, they are dedicated to the discussion of fundamentals and departments of rhetoric. And these 5 fundamentals, 5 major departments of oratory or rhetoric are as under. You can read it and you can also take it down in your notebooks. And let me tell you that here we find the influence, direct influence of Aristotle, who also talks about the 5 divisions, 5 departments, 5 segments of art of rhetoric in the poetics. So please take care. You can remember the 5 departments, 5 basic departments of the rhetoric according to Quintilian. And let me remind you once again friends, that he was under the influence of Aristotle. That is why he follows Aristotle when he talks about the 5 fundamental departments of rhetoric. Friends, the 5 departments or 5 segments of rhetoric are: number 1, invention; number 2, arrangement; number 3, style; number 4, memory; and number 5, delivery. These are the 5 major components of art of rhetoric. Later on, he talks about each of them in detail, and I would also concentrate the talk later on this only. Before that, I could go to the next slide, which shows a very wonderful aspect of this treatise called Oratorio. We remember Quintilian not only for his work and his theory or his views on art of oratory. As I told you earlier, he was well read, and he had read books by his forerunners, including Greek masters and Roman masters. So in book number 10, it is a kind of literary history of Greek and Latin literature. Friends, take care. You may please take down. There is a lively chapter on the art of arousing laughter in his art of oratorio. But what is more important is in book 10 of this book, that is Institutio Oratoria, it is a kind of treatise which contains a well-known and much praised survey of the Greek and Latin authors. He, as I told you, he was influenced by Aristophanes, Aristotle, Plato, Virgil, Homer, and also Sophocles and Cicero. You find the references to all these great masters and their work in book number 10. In a way, you can say that it was the first kind of the literary history which was systematically written. Even today, it is prescribed in a number of institutions, and students are advised to read this chapter number 10 of Institutio Oratoria. Friend, it is a superb account, and it talks about not only the work, but he also critically appreciates the work of these great masters, including Aristophanes, Virgil, Horace, Cicero, and others. So book number 10 is its prime concern is literary history of Greek and Roman writers or literature. So remember please, book number 10 is solely dedicated to literary side. He talks about this great master simply because when he talks about the choice of words, he talks about these great masters. When he talks about the decorative language, he goes to the great masters like Aristotle and Plato and also Sophocles. So these were the influence on him, and he thinks that let the budding orators also read all about them. He was so kind to render this service to the budding orators that the budding orators might not have to move here and there. He compiles everything that was available to him in one single book, that is book number 10 of his great work Institutio Oratoria. Friend, let me remind you one more important aspect, that though he is credited with several other works also, this is the only book, that is Institutio Oratoria, which is available today. So that is only book which is available today is this only. So apart from other titles which are there and which are referred to have been written by Quintilian, the only work which is available today is Institutio Oratoria. So friends, when we think of Quintilian, it is necessary you must remember the name of his great voluminous work, that is Institutio Oratoria. Friend, let me move to the next slide, and that is the last book of his great work. And see, interesting side, I said that he was a practicing lawyer, he was a successful teacher. Actually, he was the first professor of rhetoric and literature who drew salary from the government, from the emperor of Rome. So he was in a way payroll of the state, and that is a kind of credit for him that he was paid by the king himself, by the emperor. And he does not stop there. He also gives advice to the orator. See, you have everything, you have good education, you have got training under a great master, an accomplished master, but that is not enough. The practice is more important. He says that only my knowledge is not important. Whatever I have learned, it should be practiced in the field. If I speak in my room, it is of no use, because you want to be a great orator, a successful orator. Your eloquence must be exhibited in public, and that is why he gives hint to the budding orators, and these are very valuable advice in the last book, which is book number 12, which deals with the skills and other advices. And after training, he says that after your training is completed, his character and the rules that he must follow in pleading the case, as well as the style of his eloquence, and when he should retire. Three things, friends. See, there are people, when they get mic, they would not let others go, and they drag on the things for minutes together, not only minutes, hours together. But here he advises them when to retire. He must be sensible orator. It is not that the moment you get the mic, you start speaking and you care for none. He says no. What he should do, how should he do, and when he should retire, that is precisely mentioned in the last book of Institutio Oratoria. Friends, read the slide again. You may better take it down in your notebook. I may read it out for you. The last book, book number 12, deals with the ideal orator in action. In action means he has to practice this thing. It is not that he knows everything about the art of oratory, but it should be a kind of, he should apply his knowledge. So that is application aspect, that is functional aspect. That is why he earlier said that it is the art of practice. Mere knowing things will not enough, is not enough, so it should be practiced. So orator in action means he applies his knowledge in the field, and for that, after his training is completed, he talks about the character. I told you earlier that he talks about morality. So moral aspect is very important for him. He says that when you are an orator, you render your services in the public, for the public, in the interest of the public. So what is first requisite is that you must be morally sound. Today, friends, we see everywhere top leaders and ministers, we feel that they are corrupt, they are not morally sound. This is exactly what Quintilian, his book, talks about. He says that moral aspect is equally very important, simply because the orator is not a personal affair. Being an orator is not a personal affair. Being an orator is rendering service to the society. And rendering service is not only ordinary service. He says, so rendering service is in the interest of the society, for the well-being of the society. So instead of being a kind of living in a kind of ivory tower, he talks about the practice. And that is why he calls the art of oratory as the art of practice. And he talks about three things: his character, rules that he must follow, and number 3, he must know when he should retire, means when he should stop. He must not drag on for hours together. He must not jumble from one subject to other. He must be a person with concentration on what he is saying. And all these advices are available in book number 12. Friends, again I would like to say something about his work, that is Institutio Oratoria. You can better take it down in your notebook and I may better read it out for you. Institutio Oratoria was the fruit of Quintilian's wide and practical experience. Two things, friends. Wide experience. As I told you that when he was under the influence, he was under during the tender affair, he observed him minutely, how he pleads, when he keeps mum, when he speaks in high pitched sound, when he speaks something in low pitched sound. That is very important. That is his wide and long experience, practical experience. So this work is the kind of fruit of that. Next, as a teacher and a lawyer, these were the two major aspects, and teacher and a lawyer, both of them are required to speak, and they earn because of that only. They earn name and fame because of their art of oratory. A teacher who is a failure in art of oratory is, he is a total failure in his field. Similarly, the lawyer who cannot speak properly, who cannot argue properly, who cannot argue effectively, is a failure in the field. So these two professions, a teacher's profession as well as lawyer's profession, and both of these roles were there in the life of Quintilian. So he was very comfortable about writing the art of oratory and the style of art of speaking or the oratory in his work. So two things, he had got wide experience and practical experience. He observed the people speaking, he observed the people arguing, he observed the people keeping mum. That is exactly what he narrates in his work. He himself practiced it in his own life as a teacher as well as a lawyer. And his purpose was, see, that is very fine thing, not to invent the new theories of rhetoric, but to judge between the existing ones. It is said that he claims that these were his new discoveries, but later on he talks about these things, that it was for him to judge between the existing ones. There were a number of theories and philosophy of oratory which were available, but he thought what is the best among them. That is why he turns to the great masters, including Aristotle and Plato, Virgin and Sophocles. So these were the great masters before him, and the work, that is Institutio Oratoria, is a fine fruit of that. In the next slide also, as I discussed earlier, he talks about morality. It is very important aspect. He emphasizes that morality is the prime concern for the orator, simply because being an orator is not a personal or confined kind of job. It is rendering public services. And for a good orator, the first and foremost thing was he must be having a good character. And again he says that it was his central idea that a good orator must first and foremost be a good citizen. By the term good citizen, he claims that he must be morally sound, because he is looked at by so many people. He is a public figure. If he is tarnished by corruption, if he is not morally sound, people would reject him. So to be a successful orator is to render services to the people for the welfare of the people, and only a good citizen can render this service. If he has evil intention in mind, he cannot render good services. So friends, morality is a prime concern for him when he talks about a successful orator. So in art of oratory, education also plays vital role. Similarly, morality also plays a vital role. Whereas education is a kind of external entity, morality, according to him, is a quality within. So the person who is in public, who is an orator, who is rendering his services for the benefit of the society, is expected to be morally sound, and he is bound to be a good citizen. Only a good citizen can render good services, and he then only can become a good orator. Friends, again let me talk about his major claims, and you can also read from the slide. As I talked about the morality aspect, he also talks about virtuous living. In a way, it is one and same. Friends, read that line number 3 in the slide. He argued that theoretical knowledge alone is of little use without experience and a good judgment. If a person has all knowledge, all wisdom, but if it is not used for the benefit of the society, it is useless. He expects the orator or the public figure to use his skills and knowledge and information for the welfare of the society. So practice aspect, the aspect of practice is important, but again what he insists is virtuous living. The man in the public life, the public figure, is bound to lead a virtuous living. He is not expected to be in jail for number of corruption charges. He is not expected to be in jail for moral problems. What he insists that he must lead a virtuous life, and that is what makes a successful orator. Now friends, before I could move ahead, I would like to talk about some of the major issues which he discusses, as I have already discussed. Now when it comes to art of oratory, as I told you, he talks about the style. And style of oratory covers two major areas. When he talks about art of oratory, friends, he does not limit himself to only speaking. He also includes writing also. So friends, we are writing our paper or whatsoever we write, the advice given by Quintilian is equally very important to all of us. He says that when we speak or when we write, the aim must be very clear. He says that the objective of the language, that is oratory, may be written or may be spoken, is only one: to make the listener or the reader understand what we are saying. I repeat, according to Quintilian, the role or the objective of the art of oratory is only one, that is, he will have to take care that the listener or the reader understands it. So the meaning is loud and clear. He should be very much clear regarding his objective. So when I am writing something, I must be clear regarding the objective, that it must be properly understood by the reader. If I am speaking something in the public, maybe in the classroom, maybe in the public meeting, maybe in the law court, I must be clear that the other party must understand what I am saying. That is the prime objective. And for that, he talks about two major points regarding the style of presentation. It is equally applicable to the written oratory or spoken or oral oratory. You can also have speeches which are written. Nowadays it is a fashion that you write the speech and then you read it out in the public. There are number of prominent leaders who do this way, but there are others who go on ex-trumper and they start speaking. So both the things require two major issues. First, he says that choice of words, that is prime concern. It is not that something occurred in my mind and I start writing. No. He says that the word that occurred first in my mind should be used. He said no. He should be sensible enough in his choice. So choice of words is equally important. For example, I may remind you of one line from a very well-known lyric. The word is, my love is like a, then there is name of a flower and there is an adjective of color. So the line is as such, as all of us know, my love is like a red rose. See the choice of words. He might have opted for any, rose is a flower, that is what we know. But he opted for rose flower only. He did not opted for any other flower because he is talking about love. So when it is love, he might have opted for any other flower, then the effect Yes, the question of effect was there. The effect might not have been as it is with this line, my love is like a red, red rose. Again, it comes to other word and choice of word, that is color. We have plenty of colors of roses which are available today. In those days also there were a couple of colors. And Robert Burns says, my love is red like a red, red rose. He did not say it was a white rose. He did not say it was a yellow rose. Even not even pink, which is typically feminine. But he uses the word red, red rose. He repeats the word. See the choice of words and its effect. So friends, choice of words, that is the first concern when it comes to the style, when it comes to art of oratory. So one has to pick up a particular and specific word. It is not that I find this word and I use it. No. I may remind you again of the same line by this poet, and the lyric is, the first line of the lyric is, my love is like a red, red rose. He might have opted for any other thing for comparison, but he prefers flower. In among so many flowers, he picks up only the flower of rose. There are number of colors in the flowers, but he picks up only red color. That is a typical sign of love. So friends, choice of words is equally very important when it comes to art of oratory, be it written or be it oral. Next he talks about the arrangement side. If I have choice of words, I have number of words with me, but if I cannot use them properly, then it is useless. So choice of words is a kind of raw material with me, but application, the use of it effectively, is another aspect, and that is practical aspect. So friends, he talks about 4 things. He divides the style into 2. Number 1, choice of words, that is the raw material before you, and he talks about the arrangement of words. So 2 things we will have to remember, friends. First is the choice of words. Second, can you tell me? It is the arrangement of the words. And in terms of arrangement of words, he talks again about 4 major points which should be borne in mind. So they are, number 1, the clarity. If I am confused, then there is no effect. If the opposite side is confused regarding what I am saying or what I have written, then again 0 result. So there must be clarity in what I am saying. Maybe I am writing, maybe I am speaking. It must be clear in both the sides. What I understand must be understood in the same manner by the other side. What I am writing and what I understand while I am writing, it must be understood in the same manner by the reader. Whatever the orator speaks out loudly in the public meeting must be clearly understood by the audience over there. So clarity side is there. There should be no ambiguity. There should be no confusion. Clarity means whatever is intended by the speaker or the writer must reach in the same manner to the mind of the reader or the listener. That is number 1, clarity. So when it comes to arrangement of words, the words should be arranged in a way that there are no dual meanings, there are no multiplicity of meanings. The one meaning is there which is communicated to all, and the same meaning which is there in the mind of the speaker or the orator should reach to the mind of the listeners or the readers. Next he talks about the ornamental grace. Mere words do not play a significant role. It should be embellished. The choice of words is there, but the words should be presented in a embellished manner. They must be decorative. So we have got figures of speech, for example, and it must occur every now and then. Not that every line, not that every sentence you utter or write must be full of figures of speech. No. But occasionally they may occur, and it is required for a change, for kind of novelty, for variety. So number 2, friends, is ornamental language. First I talked about the clarity aspect, the other is embellishment of words. So when you first choose the word, you must form them, arrange them properly, so there is no ambiguity, it is clear to all. Number 2 in terms of arrangement is ornamental side, that is the language should be ornamental. Next he talks about artistic presentation. So you may include so many things when you speak or when you write. It must not be monotonous kind of thing. It must be sensible enough. It must lead and it must evoke some passion into the mind of reader or the listeners. So that is the artistic presentation. And number 4 is rhythmic style. Words are words and they may create no effect when they are bare. Actually he talks about two things, that in verse there is rhythmic pattern, but in prose it is very difficult. So Quintilian insists that it is up to the listeners, it is up to the ears of the listeners that the effect is created. Actually he does not clarify regarding the rhythmic style in prose. In poetry it is always there, he agrees, and we know that because it is arranged in a proper manner, meter is there, the words limit is there, everything is there, prosody is there. But when it comes to prose, friends, when it comes to speaking in public, then you cannot recite poems. You have to say something. But he says that apart from speaking in an embellished language, they must have some rhythms in the sentences. So when you say something in public, when you deliver talks, when you argue, the element of rhythm also plays vital role. So these 4 things regarding the arrangement of the words, arrangement of the raw material, it includes clarity, it includes number 2 the ornamental grace, number 3 is, as I told you, artistic presentation, and number 4, friends, is the rhythmic pattern. All these things are very necessary when it comes to art and style of oratory, rhetoric. So I conclude with this note. Please remember, friends, I may repeat some of the points, that Quintilian was not only a literary critic, he was educationist, he was also a great writer, a great orator, and a great lawyer. He was first a lawyer and then he became a teacher who was paid by none other than the Roman emperor. By birth he was Spanish, but then by practice, and he spent most of his life in Rome, though he went quite number of time to his native, that is Spain. But we remember him to be more of a Roman by practice and less of Spanish by birth. I think, friends, and I may conclude wishing you all the best. If you have got any problem, feel free to ask questions. Thank you. I wish you all the best again. That's all.
Sandhan All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.